heard about yet never delved deeper into, the age-old question that my mind keeps asking, the one that wants and longs to be heard is, how bad is it? Let's break this topic piece by piece and begin by asking, what is ageism? By dictionary definition, it means to discriminate or prejudice on the grounds of a person's age. To put it simply, ageism, to me at least, is horrible stereotyping of people just because of one's age. Now, why of all topics have I decided to speak about ageism? Well, I was facing the impending doom of having to pick a topic for the speech. I initially pondered and settled and talked about pessimism, not disregarding it, but rather highlighting the pros of it. Why, you may ask? Personally, I don't perceive myself as the most optimistic type of person, more like the contrary in reality, hence the topic dwelt in my mind. I've been labeled as grumpy, and my peers find it weird when I smile. They always assume something's about to go down when I do that. But while surfing through the internet, the word ageism came up, and I felt this was a topic that needed to be my modus operandi. Just imagine a 15-year-old about to sway the audience in front of her to believe in the message that she wants to convey. What message, you may ask? Well, to alter our perspective towards ageism, of course. I'd like to start off with a favorite quote of mine from the novel Jane Eyre, written by Charlotte Bronte. It states as follows: I do not think, sir, you have the right to command me merely because you are older than I, or because you have seen more of the world than I have. Your claim to superiority depends on the use you have made of your time and experience. This quote really resonates with what I feel about on this matter, because she's right after all. Who's to say you're better than me or any other young individual simply because you've lived longer than I have? I could be cocooned in my own little bubble, which may seem pathetic to some, but still be able to strive physically, mentally, and emotionally. Who are you to dictate and alter someone else's life choices due to the mere "you're too young" or "you're too old" attitude? I hope you see the ridiculousness of this stereotype. The absurdity of a person's age is a number hindering an individual's capabilities. And to add insult to injury, people use it to their advantage to make themselves strive harder towards demeaning or rash judging another person due to their age. However, when I was doing my research on this topic, I realized the majority of ageism cases that are being focused upon on the internet are those that are about old age people. For instance, 49 health researches were conducted to show reasons for the health of the old age, and all 49 studies, as well as 94.4% of the 74 associations, showed ageism as the main reason for their current state. Another fault done by the 7.8 billion inhabitants of this planet Earth, if you ask me. But Chelsie, you said the younger generations are the ones criticized for their lack of experience since they haven't lived as long as the elders. Dear audience, welcome to domestic society we're all a part of. The society where we're too young to take part in important things, and the society where we're too old to be utilized by the ever-growing economy. Turns out, only those with the perfect age are quite deserving to have a say in what we do. But all that I'm saying proves to be worthless if I can even give one good and justified reason why I'm so affected by it. So here it is. Speaking for myself, and possibly for others who feel the same, I believe that ageism crushes hopes and dreams. Let me give you a scenario. There's this young child who happens to be very ambitious. They want to deal and have a say in the current affairs. They declare it whenever they're asked, and they're faced with a line I'm sure you all are familiar with. You're too young to know what you're talking about. Just imagine how irritated, how betrayed the child would feel. But on top of that, imagine them feeling low self-esteem because they've just been hit with the fact that their opinion isn't worthy of being listened to. That whatever they have to say doesn't even begin to equate to what the knowledgeable may know. I admit it might be true in certain circumstances, but regardless, they can't just simply crush what the young might believe in. They can't just force him or her into silence. I strongly believe that's the after effect of such an event taking place. I believe that it could only lead to two possibilities. One, the child doesn't pay any attention to what the others have to say and continue pursuing, which is, the good outcome, the welcome outcome. And two, the child never wanting to speak up in fear of being rejected yet again. I wouldn't have any concerns if it was always the former outcome that came as a result, but it isn't. The risk of a child losing their will to speak up at such a young and tender age is a risk that we simply cannot contemplate upon. It's funny because what I just explained is something I feel right now. Some of you are probably thinking how I shouldn't be speaking about this topic because perhaps it's too controversial, or maybe I'm not really an expert in this topic. But regardless of that, I'm making it an aim, almost like a personal goal, to step away from this second outcome and just speak. Speak freely to my heart's desire and just let go. But sadly, not everyone decides to do the same, either because they don't enjoy the risk of it, or because they're not given an opportunity to speak up in a worldwide known platform as such. Maybe that's what motivated me after all, the motivation to rebel against most odds. A trivial feat for you all, but the complete opposite for me. I believe that some people don't understand the amount of power they would have if they just spoke. It truly amuses me to think that a single sentence could potentially ruin everything. When I was constantly researching on ageism and the discrimination for the youth, I stumbled upon the story of two young sisters who were aged 18 and 21 at the time who were assigned from their jobs in the service station. After what they felt was aggressive and unfair criticism, they claimed that they were constantly berated for mistakes that they have committed during their work time, even though it was caused by another employee's mistake. Now, here's the part we're all looking for. The ones who were criticizing them was the senior manager of the business firm. Disappointing, but not surprising. Imagine having to leave your own workplace after being criticized by the one who employed you in the first place. I mean, if he or she had something against young, talented, and well-educated workers, they shouldn't have employed them to begin with. Despite being driven out from their place of employment, this story comes to quite a happy ending. In Osborne, the employment tribunal upheld the age discrimination claims of these two young sisters who were not treated with the respect that they deserved as employees, and that the very same employer did not treat an older employee in the same way, meaning that they did have something against the younger generation. This is one of several incidents where something as such takes place, and it's a good thing that action was put into motion. But how about the numerous incidents that just slid by without anyone noticing? It happens a lot nowadays, don't you think? Think about the amount of careers and emotions that must have been suppressed due to the belief that the younger ones lacked the knowledge to compete with those ahead of them. It's quite ironic and frankly silly how most of the time it's the very same people who claim that the younger generation should be given a shot at going big. On another note, ageism actually happens very frequently, and most of the time we don't even realize it. There's actually a proper terminology for all this, and it's unintentional ageism. To be honest, I didn't even know there were several categories for ageism, and if there were subcategories, I assumed they would be according to the ages of people. But little did I know, there's actually several types of ageism: unintentional ageism and intentional ageism, to which constitutional ageism and personal ageism fell under. Now, to give you a brief idea of each, let's start with unintentional ageism, because believe it or not, it's the most frequent type of discrimination that takes place, and we don't even know it. But let me remind you, just because it's unintentional doesn't make it unimportant. That's like saying you ran over a person, but it's completely fine because, hey, guess what? It was not intentional. I feel that what I just said practically summarizes how majority of the world fixes crimes that happen around the world nowadays. I'm sure most of us around my age can relate to the fact that we've been called lazy at least once in our lifetime. And believe it or not, it falls under the category of unintentional ageism. Why? Because it's an accusation to a specific age group and frankly, a very common stereotype. You may very well be doing something very productive, but since you fit in the younger generation category, you're automatically lazy. It's not the worst type of ageism out there, but it can lead to people feeling very bitter. Intentional ageism, on the other hand, as the name suggests, is intentional, meaning the person does what they do knowing fully well that they're being biased. It's basically a set of rules and ideas that a person follows to make the other person feel under him or her. First off, rude, and second, very uncalled for. But unfortunately, it happens a lot. The case of the two sisters I mentioned earlier is a perfect example for this type of ageism. Many issues, many victims, many untold stories, and it all leads to just one factor: a number. Isn't it shocking how something so trivial can lead to something so scarring, like feeling and being belittled, or lead to something even more life-threatening, like losing your job? Imagine having to explain to your next employer how and why you came to the decision to leave your previous job. Ah, yes, I left because apparently I was too young. What more is imagining that line actually being used as a reason as to why they left? I started off the speech with a question in mind. Two, actually. One being, what is ageism? Which I'm sure we've all learned about after hearing me now, an amateur turned professional expert, and second, being the title of my speech. Am I too young, or are you just too old? And as I sum up, I'm confident that each one of you will think about this. Does this really matter? I mean, can't we all just forget the perfect age, forget all the stereotypes, and just live our life amicably? Because I believe nothing should completely define you and me, and neither should a number. I'd like to leave with a quote said by Mark Twain that I believe we should all keep in our minds. Age is an issue of mind over matter. If you don't mind, then it doesn't matter. Thank you.